Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Women Winning Wednesdays. I am your host, attorney Elsa W. Smith. I'm also the owner of the law offices of Elsa W. Smith, where our mission is to empower women through estate planning. Welcome to the 50th episode of Women Winning Wednesdays. Can you guys believe this? We're celebrating our 50th episode today. It's 50th episode since we launched back in April of last year. And I'm still in amazement that we've got 50 episodes now under our belt. We have shared some really great times over the last year. We have talked to realtors, brokers, family attorneys, therapists, financial advisors, philanthropists, authors, and more. And we have really been intentional in bringing you people and resources to help you in areas that impact the creation of what is a comprehensive estate plan. Now, I have a very special guest for you today. Not only is she a friend, a colleague, but she is an amazing woman, and I'm going to tell you why. Cary Jacobson is the founder and managing partner of Jacobson Family Law. Cary has been practicing law now for about 12 years, having successfully represented clients in all facets of family law proceedings, including separation, divorce, custody, child support, post-divorce enforcement, and other family law related matters. Through her experience litigating family law matters, Cary has found that the conflict associated with litigation really tears a family apart, making it toxic for children as well as their parents. However, as a certified mediator and collaborative divorce attorney, Cary has also seen how these forms of alternative dispute resolution can lead to, as well as foster, successful co-parenting arrangements. Cary has chosen to dedicate her practice to working with clients who wish to resolve their family disputes without court intervention. She assists clients in choosing between mediation, collaborative divorce, or separation agreements in order to keep the drama out of their divorce. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Cary Jacobson. Cary, hi, and welcome to the program.
Hi, Elsa. Thank you so much. And I want to congratulate you on your 50th episode. That is so exciting.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Cary. And thank you for being so gracious with your time. We're gonna have a good time today. A lot of stuff to talk about. And it's just a joy, not only as a friend, as a colleague, and I respect you tremendously for the work that you have been doing and will continue to do. So tell us, before we get started, tell us a bit about your practice. I know you're based here in Maryland, but tell us who's on your team and a bit about your law firm.
Absolutely. So yes, I am based here in Maryland. We are primarily in Howard County, but we serve now just about every facet of Maryland. Since we are a virtual practice, I have currently one paralegal on my team and an administrative assistant, and we are bringing on an associate that will be starting in May. So we're excited about growing.
Exciting. Very, very exciting. We're going to talk about, and I mentioned different terms that people might not be familiar with in your intro. One of them is, collaborative divorce, and we're going to get into mediation and the process. But before I do that, tell us your why. Why do you do this?
You touched on it a little bit in the bio. It really is because I, as doing traditional family law in the litigation world, saw how toxic that litigation really is for families. It's expensive, it's emotionally draining, And now after COVID, it takes an extraordinary amount of time to get through an entire court process. We're talking it could be up to 2 or more years before a final divorce is granted if someone has to wait for a judge to make a decision. So there are definitely better ways to truly put the kids as well as the parties first and try to resolve things without all of the adversity.
Now, now I want to kind of do a deeper dive into what is collaborative law. I know it's a fairly new area of the law, and you're one of the few people that I know, quite frankly, who focus a significant part of your practice to this area. So, if you can educate us all on what collaborative law is, and the follow up is, tell us about mediation and what are the differences.
Okay. So as you indicated, collaborative is relatively new. It started in around the late 90s. Typically, the collaborative process includes a professional team. And that professional team is working with the parties and helping them come to an agreement that works for them and their family. One of the very unique aspects of the collaborative process is that everyone on the team, all of the professionals and the parties, have to sign up what's called a participation agreement. And that participation agreement basically says that they're going to act respectfully with one another, be completely transparent. So they have to provide, there's no hiding the ball. Everybody has to, give full disclosure of assets and any information that may be important to one of the parties being able to base an agreement on. And the other piece is that if they can't reach an agreement in the collaborative process, they have to hire new counsel to take the case to litigation. So the attorneys that they are working with, the collaborative attorneys, cannot actually do the litigation if they don't reach a resolution.
Okay.
How collaborative is different from mediation? One of those important things is the participation agreement. You don't have that within the mediation process. Often in the mediation process, you may not have all of the professionals working as a team. You may have them kind of in the background and may have them on the side that you personally, one of the parties may be working with, but they're not all sitting around the table at the same time talking and reaching an agreement.
Is mediation, is it required in the state of Maryland, or is it optional?
So there's kind of two answers to that. If parties start out in litigation, so someone files for a divorce or files for custody, if custody is an issue, most of the time the court will order custody mediation, unless there's, safety reasons, or maybe they've already tried mediation and it simply didn't work. Parties can also choose to do private mediation. I do both court and court order mediations as well as private. So sometimes parties will try private mediation to resolve their disputes without having to go to court, except to have the uncontested hearing.
And the parties, I guess, in terms of the cost, they end up splitting the cost when they go that route?
A lot of times.
Mm-hmm. What are, since we are talking about costs, what are some of the benefits or the costs and time savings in choosing to go through the collaborative route? And one thing I forgot to ask you is, how does one get to the point where they decide, like before going to the process, describe that process, but then talk to us about the savings, the benefits.
Okay. So when a client comes to me for an initial consultation, as you indicated, most people have not heard of collaborative. Sometimes people have heard of mediation, but they don't really know all of the process options available. So that is one piece of our consultation, is educating clients on what options are available to them and trying to determine which process option is best for themselves and their family. If the party and their spouse, because the spouse has to also be in agreement with participating in collaborative, if they both indicate that that's a process option that they are interested in, then it's a matter of forming the team. So the other spouse will find their own attorney, and then often I'm working with that attorney in deciding who the team members are going to be. We often have two divorce coaches who are mental health professionals. They will work with the parties in creating a parenting plan if there are minor children. They may also, I think their job is one of the most important of the entire collaborative process, because they're really focusing the clients on hearing the other person and effectively communicating, and looking at big picture. And they're kind of running the process. We often also have a financial neutral involved, who can be a CPA, it can be a financial planner, and their role is to help the parties with the financial aspects, whether it's property division, division of expenses, payment of, child support, alimony, whatever the case may be.
Okay, now I'm hearing a lot of professionals involved. So you mean to tell me that despite the fact that we've got all these great minds coming together to help you work through your divorce, that still, in terms of cost benefit, that still gets you further ahead than, say, just going through the traditional knockdown, drag out, boxing match that is, really contentious divorce proceedings.
Absolutely. And the reason for that is because oftentimes in that, that litigation realm, you are also hiring professionals and experts. So there may be someone who has to, and often there are competing experts. So in the litigation world, both spouses are hiring business evaluators. Both spouses may be hiring, experts with regards to finances. Who's going to have, what's the earning potential? You may have all kinds of competing experts. In the collaborative world, often you are hiring a neutral person, expert, who is going to work with both parties in crafting a solution. And you're not doing things that are unnecessary in the collaborative world.
Wow. That's really good to know. And I hope the audience is really getting this, that despite the fact that you've got a number of other professionals involved, you're still, from a cost benefit analysis, you're still going to be ahead of the game if you consider this route. So Cary, who's your ideal client? Who are the people that you typically serve?
So we work with anyone who's going through a divorce, but I would say that commonly what we're seeing most often are families, two working parents between 30 and 50 years old, 2 to 4 children. That's our sweet spot. That being said, we have been seeing an uptick in what we call gray divorce. People who have been married 20, 30, 40, almost 50 years. And so we also work with that population. And that's a different type of dynamic, different things we have to be considerate of.
I'm sure. And considering, you're right, because divorce is in the estate planning world, it's one of those pivotal moments where you need to reconsider, retweak your estate plan. And we're going to talk about that in a minute. So I'm glad that you brought that up. Tell us about the training that's needed and any certifications needed to hold yourself out, one as a collaborative lawyer as well as a mediator.
So there is a training that is required for collaborative. It is a 40-hour basic collaborative training. We often also do advanced trainings. So I am currently the president of the Maryland Academy of Collaborative Professionals, and our group puts on trainings for statewide for professionals who are collaboratively trained, either the basic training as well as, lunch and learn programs and that sort of thing. As a mediator, to do court-appointed mediation, you also have to have a 40-hour basic mediation training. To do custody issues, you have to have a 20-hour custody and child support training. And then there's another one, which is for financial and property division issues, which is another 20-hour training.
Wow. So there, it sounds like there's just constant, continual legal education that's required. And you really set yourself apart, Cary, because you're not only doing it, but you also teach
Correct.
as well.
Well, so we put on different trainings, not necessarily myself only, but as we have different panels. And I'm also part of a collaborative professional practice group. And so we are constantly having, speakers come to us and learning new information and learning from our other practice colleagues.
Cary, in your practice, from all the cases that you've handled, are you noticing that as people become more aware of this, that there's that collaborative law is kind of on the rise?
I think so. I think it kind of comes and goes with as a lot of things, but I do think that it is becoming more popular as people are trying to avoid the court process, especially now that there is such a delay in getting a resolution.
Indeed, indeed. So what would you say, some of the stumbling blocks that you've seen as a collaborative attorney from the client side? And then, as you know, I'll follow up with you in a second with the stumbling blocks that you've had as a professional. But tell me what some of the challenges are that clients have as they're entering this collaborative process. Because it sounds great, but
So I think that it's just the resistance, as you mentioned earlier. When you start talking about all the professionals involved, it does sound like it's going to be, highly expensive. And so getting over that hurdle and recognizing that the value of what you walk away with is exponentially higher than the, solution or resolution you would get if you were in litigation. And the other, downside is, in that unfortunate event that an agreement can't be reached, then you're having to start over in litigation. And so there is that aspect that is unique to the collaborative process.
But but in order to, of course, try to avoid that, you do extensive screening, questioning on the front end.
Absolutely.
To make sure that you're setting people up for success, right?
Absolutely. Not every case is appropriate for collaborative. And so it's really making sure that the parties are focused on trying to reach a resolution that is child focused, that they are looking at the big picture, and that's the process, and that their goals are in line with the collaborative process.
Good. Now, for my follow-up question, what have been some of the challenges that you have faced as a woman in this profession, and in building your practice? Your practice has grown significantly over the years. So talk to us, but I know it hasn't all been rosy. So share at least a few of the challenges that you've had.
So I think, I'm a woman and a mom. One of the biggest challenges is trying to figure out how to balance it all. And having a great support system is necessary. And, luckily, I have a really great colleagues. I think one really awesome thing that came out of the pandemic, if there has been any highlights out of the pandemic, is that people have recognized that virtual options are wonderful for working parents, working professionals. I was actually trying to get more people to do, virtual mediation, collaborative meetings before the pandemic. And a lot of professionals were resistant. They didn't think that it could really be done, that you had to be, in person. That makes it very challenging, especially because we don't have that many collaborative professionals. We've got a group in Montgomery County. We have a group in Baltimore County. We have a group in Howard County. But if you want to work with professionals that are further away, sometimes distance and, timing makes that challenging. And so now that we have this as a virtual option, it has streamlined that exponentially. And same with mediation. We are able to have people in different in the virtual world. People can be at their desk at work. I've had many people do mediations from their car. I mean, it works well. And so I think that has been a highlight of the pandemic.
Were there any challenges that you experienced in trying to grow your practice or get it to where it is right now?
I would say the biggest part is finding good people to work for me. And that also, I'm really looking to have people who want to empower individuals to create resolutions outside of court. So people who are, really passionate about our mission. And we have a great team.
Wonderful. And when you said empowerment, of course, that resonates with what we do here at the firm, empowering women through estate planning. I want to go back to the fact that there's this team, of collaborative professionals. Does your client have to find these people, or do you provide, a list of names and then you go from there? How does that process work?
So often one of the first steps is once both spouses have their attorneys chosen, the attorneys will kind of talk with one another and consider who will be good other professionals to make this team, because the professionals in the team are how they work with one another is absolutely important. They can make or break the process. So we will consult with one another and kind of give our clients suggestions on who we have worked well with before, and who we think would be great personality fits. So we have, lots of professionals that we have dealt with and will make suggestions.
Wonderful. What are some of the estate planning concerns that your clients may have during and or after the divorce process?
So obviously, after the divorce process, it's important for everyone who has gone through a divorce to update their estate planning documents, both their power of attorneys, as well as their healthcare directives, and whether they're going to do a will or a living trust, and to change beneficiary designations and that sort of thing, because now the divorce has happened, and presumably they don't necessarily want their ex-spouse to receive, a portion of their estate upon their passing. But because we're in collaborative or mediation, the parties can get very creative in how they structure their estate planning. So I've seen on several occasions where, they want to make sure that their kids are protected. So they may put in a provision in their agreement that, upon the passing of one, that the house is going to go to the children. And so, or they're going to create a specific trust for the benefit of the children. So those pieces are often discussed in the mediation and or collaborative process.
Good. I'm interested in, I've heard a lot now about like pre and post nups. Are they, or nups, I mean nuptial agreements for everybody listening. I've heard that they also kind of put a downer, they're a bit unromantic. What's your professional take on that?
So being a divorce attorney, I think anytime you can have a conversation prior to marriage about, finances, and how you want to structure things is ideal. If nothing else, it's opening up a conversation on how you want to structure finances going forward. I think of prenups and postnuptial agreements as really an insurance policy. You have no expectation that a divorce is going to happen in the future, but in that event, you're basically pre-planning how things are going to happen so that you don't get into a long litigation battle in the future.
Yeah, so definitely necessary. And I guess I guess you can view it as romantic if you think, listen, I care enough about you to deal with this
Right.
beforehand. Um, Give us, if you will, because I always want to, leave our audience with tips and things that they can use right now. If they are considering the collaborative process, now that you've given us, the foundation, you've described what it is, what are 3 tips for folks in that scenario?
So the first would be trust the process. It's unique. It's different than what most people expect, and it's customizable based on what the parties need. But parties really need to trust the process and the professionals. The second would be to utilize the full team. So you have all of those professionals at your fingertips. Really use them for their area of expertise so that you're working with the mental health professionals in crafting that parenting plan and not using attorneys to do that because the mental health professionals are the experts in that world. And then the third would be not to try to win negotiations. It
Mhm.
really is trying to hear the interests and goals of both parties and trying to meet them, and sometimes very creatively.
Sometimes I imagine, before I ask you the next question, sometimes it's hard for people to make that mental shift from what is traditionally, an adversarial
Mhm.
climate, kind of a gladiators in in the ring, kind of thing, to actually sitting down and saying, we're going to work through this together.
Right.
It requires a lot of vulnerability, I guess, and as you said, trusting the process. What are some 3 tips that you could share for people going through mediation?
One would be to hire an experienced divorce mediator, someone who's done it a number of times. While a mediator cannot give either party legal advice, they can give you information about what has worked for other people, other families. They have likely done, gone through this process many more times than the parties have and can give, you know, direction. Um, the second is to gather necessary documentation or information so that you know how much is left on the mortgage, how much each party has in their retirement accounts, how assets are potentially titled. Those are important things. And then the third would be to be willing to compromise.
Mhm. That's a toughie, I'm sure. Yeah. And whether you're going through mediation or not, that disclosure of assets, that's required no matter what. If you're going through a divorce, right? Through the initial disclosure, that disclosures that need to be made.
Yeah, I mean, it's helpful because you can't reach an agreement unless you have the information. Um, you know, you want an agreement to everybody entering into an agreement to do so with informed consent. So, knowing what the assets are is going to make that agreement even more durable.
Carrie, and we mentioned at the outset, I just want to speak to this since I mentioned it in the intro that you do also separation agreements. Could you just touch briefly on what they are and how they're used?
Sure. So, the ultimate result from whether you go through mediation or collaborative is that you're going to ultimately have a contract, which is your separation agreement or your marital settlement agreement, that is a contract between the parties that addresses all of the issues between the two of you. There are times when I may represent a person, a client, in negotiating those terms with either, between themselves with each other, and I'm preparing that document, or where I'm working with the other party's spouse and negotiating those terms back and forth. It's just another process option, that settlement negotiation that is available to clients.
Carrie, I was looking forward to this interview for a number of reasons, but I love the fact that your firm and what you're doing seems to be very progressive. It's like a new way of doing things. And a lot of times new, people don't know what to make of it, but you're one of the few, and I told you this in show prep, you're one of the few people that I know that actually do collaborative law. I know a number of mediators, but in terms of in collaborative law in that world, you're one of the few people in Maryland that I know that do this sort of work. So you're really at at the forefront of what I believe. I think as people are exposed, as they're educated to new and different ways of coming to resolutions, I would guess that people are going to, take a second look at, collaborative law and go, maybe this is the route. I don't want to have indigestion every time I meet with my attorney. Or the opposing my soon to be ex spouse's attorney. So I love what you're doing. How can we support you on, if you're on social media, as I know you are, how can we support you? I'm going to put your contact information on the screen.
Thank you. So we are on social media, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and our website, which you have listed. So Jacobson Family Law on all of those.
And are there resources that people can use on your website if they want more information on what we've talked about today or on other topics?
Yes. So we have lots of blog posts. Our YouTube channel has different videos about these topics. And we often post, 5 tips about different things that are going on Instagram and Facebook.
Awesome. Cary, I want to thank you so much for, just being gracious with your time and joining me today and celebrating our 50th episode. This is really special, and I appreciate you for so many reasons. And I wish you nothing but success in your practice. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll talk to you in a little while.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Everyone, Cary Jacobson. She was absolutely wonderful. I was looking forward to this episode, and now you know why, because I really thrive in being in community with people who are doing things, who are, changing the way that we look at things. And I want to mention that if there is anything that we at Women Winning Wednesdays can do for this community, I want you to email us at info@elsawsmithlaw.com, or post on any one of our, social media networks. We'll certainly answer more of your questions as we go forward. I want to thank our viewers for making this such a fun and fulfilling experience so far. I thank you for showing up each week and really inspiring me to show up for you each week. And I also want to take a special moment to thank my team, Abigail, Allie, Lindsay, and everybody who has helped us to bring you content each week for the past 50 episodes. I'm still in awe. I've hoped that you've learned that in order to really get ahead, you need a team. No one person can or should do it all. As an estate planning firm, we can be a critical part of the team that's going to help you gain peace of mind over your health and your wealth. We empower our clients by crafting comprehensive estate plans every day. We'd love to be on your team. If you are in Maryland or the District of Columbia and you need help with your estate plan, give us a call. Our number is and information are at the bottom of the screen. And by the way, don't forget to subscribe and or follow us wherever you view this show, on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Go back and view some of the full episodes on our growing YouTube archive. I'm Elsa W. Smith, your Maryland estate planning attorney. Thanking you again for joining us on episode 50. Here's to 50 more. Be well. We'll talk to you soon.